Janet Fritz here for Galaxy Girl Creations. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to another day of 30 days of sketches. Today is actually day 11, although I'm posting it on the 12th because I had the two swapped. So yesterday's should have been today, and this one should have been yesterday. But anyway, it's here nonetheless. And the sketch I'm using is from Allison Davis at Scrapbook Generation, and I stayed pretty true to the sketch. I did this while I was at a retreat, and I didn't take a ton of paper with me to this retreat, so I am using my Catherine Pooler inks to ink up some paper to coordinate with this layout. So I stayed with a double page, and like I said, I stayed pretty true to the sketch. So I am layering up some papers on the left-hand side, which is kind of what it shows on the sketch. Looks like there might be a little stitching around there. I didn't do any stitching. I, again, was at a retreat and I didn't have my sewing machine, and nobody at the retreat had a sewing machine. So you know what? You work with what you've got. I did triple matte this, obviously, there. So I've got the red in the very background, then the black, and then a white piece of paper, which I have shaded blue with the Catherine Pooler inks. I know I'm using Cove blue, and then the other one I think is Stone blue. And then the paper that says the good stuff all over it. And so I am pretty happy with using the red and blue together. I'm thinking that's going to work really well because Noah is wearing a fireman's hat and he's got a blue jacket and blue jeans. And I didn't want to go with the bright blue of his jacket. I wanted to stay with a kind of a muted blue because in the photo where they're all in the fire truck, there's a lot of grays and kind of a gray blue kind of a look. And then the concrete has a lot of gray. So actually a lot of things around the fire station has a lot of gray in it. So I wanted to stay with a more muted blue. And I'm pretty happy with the way that the inking of the papers worked to just coordinate with this layout. So he did a fire station visit with his mom and his dad and his grandpa on his dad's dad, who has a friend that actually works at the fire station. And this was during COVID, but he had some special privileges, if you will, because his grandpa is really good friends with this firefighter. And so he not only got to visit the fire station, he got to use the hoses to squirt and knock down construction type cones. He got to actually go for a ride in the fire truck with the lights and sirens on. So it was a pretty special day for him. And so I definitely wanted to document that. Now I didn't need a picture of every single thing. There's a lot of like little tiny supporting photos on the right hand side there of the trucks and the hoses and stuff like that. So I made those really small. I did all of those using the collage portion of the selfie app. So it's the selfie layout app that I used, and it just allows you to choose several photos, and you can mix them up. You don't really get to, you can say where you want them, but within a certain arrangement of the photos. So I don't get to resize them, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But this size seemed to work well. And so what I'm doing is I'm going to put a white piece of paper in that grid where the photo is going to be, and then the photo is going to be matted onto another piece of paper that has a blue background that I'm going to ink, and then the photo is going into that little grid space. Now the photos that are larger, I will just cut the grid apart, and it will still go in each section. So that's my plan anyway. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut the squares that I need to fit in this grid that I have off to the right hand side. And that cut file is, I think I just found a grid cut file and then I stretched it. So it wasn't anything that was too crazy. And it did start with the squares being all symmetrical. But I'm happy with the way that it turned out. So it looks good, and it works for this purpose. And I didn't have to like cut two cut files to make it fit on that page. So that made me happy. I thought I might have to cut two to span across the 12 inches top to bottom, because as you know, the silhouette and the Cricut doesn't cut all the way to the outside edge of the paper. But I was able to just use my scissors to kind of trim out the next section of squares. They are somewhat cut already, so that wasn't a big deal. I do have some video that I will use a QR code to link up to this. My daughter took some video of him using the hoses, so I'm going to link that up as well. And I am actually not going to do any journaling on this. I'm going to leave it for her to do because I wasn't there that day and she was. And so I'm providing that large 4x6 card, which I actually cut down a little bit because my photos are not a true 4x6 due to being printed on the selfie. Once I had them with the white border around them, I measured them, and then I cut my paper or my 4x6 card down so that I could mat it with that blue again, because I want to keep that the same from page to page. I want to bring in more of that blue color. So it did get trimmed down a bit, so it's not a true 4x6 either. As always, I will provide a list down below of the products that I'm using, like the ink pads there. The large blue one is a Catherine Pooler Cove blue, and the small one is Stone blue, so that you can reference those if you are interested in purchasing anything like that. And don't forget, there is a list of people playing along with today's sketch down in my description box. Although you'll probably have to look at their channels for yesterday to get today's sketch, and you can look at today's videos on their channels to get ones that look like the one I did yesterday, because I posted on opposing days. So I'm going to get my layers all lined up and make sure they're all straight using my T-square ruler. I'm kind of a stickler about that when I put this kind of stuff down. I like to make sure that they are straight, and especially on paper with, it looks like stripes, they're little arrows, but they go in a row, and those kind of papers really, it's kind of like using a grid paper and having something not lined up. You can definitely tell because the stripes or the grid or whatever is not symmetrical on either side. So those kind of papers, I definitely take the extra time to make sure everything is lined up perfectly. So that piece of paper that is blue now, it doesn't need to be colored all the way to the bottom, because I do have that fourth photo of Noah looking in the hubcap of the fire truck, and that is going to cover up that white spot. Now, what he's looking at in the fire truck is his own reflection, and then he can also see his mom and his dad. I think it's his mom and his dad, or it might be his dad and his grandpa. He can see the reflection of the other people standing behind him, so he's looking at that. And I just thought it was really cute because, you know, those are some things that kids notice because they're at the right height for it that we don't always notice. And I think that's always really interesting because it's all about perspective, you know, and when you take a photo, it's kind of the same thing. You know, if you put your camera way down low, you get a different perspective than if your camera is way up high. And so it's something to think about when you're doing photography. And I think it's definitely interesting when you have small kids around, you maybe place things in different places so that they can see them better, or you maybe place them in different places to keep them out of arm's reach, but or to keep them out of eyesight, to kind of hide things from them until the time is right for them to receive it, that kind of a thing. But you know, it crosses right over to photography, like I said. So think about that next time you're out taking pictures. Think about what kind of perspective you can get by moving your camera low or high or at an extreme angle or such. So all kinds of fun ways to change up your photography. Not that I'm an expert or anything, but it is something that I do think about when I take pictures quite often. So it doesn't mean I always like listen to myself, but you know, hey, I do think about it. So there's my cut file with the edges cut off. Basically, it started cutting those squares, but because it doesn't cut all the way to the outer edge, it left a large border. So all I had to do was kind of snip that border off, and it left those edges. And so I'm pretty happy with the way that that turned out. Now I am trimming out some of the grid, like I mentioned, to fit these photos in. Now I don't know what I was thinking with this one. I don't know why I started so far to the right. It does end up, I think I end up moving it over one. No, actually I do leave it here. I had yeah, I think I do leave it there. So it is at the right angle, I think, at this present time. I did play around with how angled I wanted it, and that's why I'm saying that I'm not really sure if I left it there or not. I don't mind if the door of the fire truck is cut off. You know that it's a fire truck. You get the idea. It's not something that needs to be fully in the photograph for you to get the idea. Now the photo right above it, that's more in a horizontal position, is a rack of the fire hoses, and I thought that was kind of cool. Again, that was like a perspective photo of the hoses being across there. And oh, this is the one where I cut the wrong piece out, but that's okay. I'm cutting the correct piece out now. And so I think it's really cool that you get those kind of backup photos, because you don't always need them, but it's definitely nice to have them when you do want them for something like this type of a layout. So when you take photos of the foliage in an area, or like beautiful flowers or something like that, or the architecture in the area that you are visiting, or these little detailed photos of things that are in a specific place that maybe tells more about the story. It could be kitchen utensils in a kitchen, or it could be whatever. These kind of things really help tell your story, and they're great for these types of layouts. So don't discount those. So as I mentioned before, I was matting my photos with the blue and then putting them on the white paper behind here. That also helped me because I didn't have to kind of figure out the exact dimensions of these rectangles that I needed to fill. That would have been really difficult to do, given some of my photos are larger, either taller or wider or more square or whatever. I just decided this was the easiest way to fill these rectangles in without worrying about that. And I am okay that some of them have a bigger white border than the others. It doesn't bother me at all. In the sketch, this grid is tilted the opposite direction, but to me it felt like things were kind of falling off the page, so I just basically tilted it the other direction to combat that. So I do like the way that it looks. I like this grid on the outside of these of this layout on the far right. I think it looks really good. It kind of keeps with a very linear look of this layout in total. I mean, everything has kind of a linear look. Everything's really straight. And while the grid is tilted, it still has all of these really, very straight lines. There's not a lot of organic feel to this layout. So I decided to go ahead and mat all of these 3 pieces on black, because otherwise they were far enough apart that the red shows through and the grid behind would also show. And so I didn't want that grid showing. I just decided to mat these in the black to cover it. And that worked well, because I didn't have to worry about which pieces of the grid to cut out or which pieces of the photographs to trim off that were over by that grid. It just worked out well. And the one that is down at the bottom there that is partially covered, I am just going to create a new piece, and I'm going to put this smaller photo of the fire truck with the door open in there. And so that works, and it's going right over the top of my photo, so it kind of feels like it brings the grid and those 3 photos on that vertical mat all together. And I'm really happy with the way that it turned out. The whole double page layout turned out really, really nicely. And I was really excited to do these photos because I knew I would have a QR code for it, and that I would want to link up that video. And I know it was a really special day for Noah, so I thought it would be a really fun layout to do. Also very themey, even though I didn't use anything that was very themey on the layout. I could have pulled in, you know, fire trucks or whatever. I don't feel like I need to be very themey in most cases. Once in a while, I do enjoy it, especially dinosaurs, because he loves dinosaurs, and so why not have dinosaurs all over your page? But in this case, you know, it would have been cute with fire trucks and stuff, but I was at a crop and I didn't have that stuff with me, so I just made it work using the colors that would work with it. And the one thing I did plan ahead was I cut out the title with a font from Creative Fabrica, and my title just says Fire Station 17. And I didn't know what color I was going to want it to be, so I cut it in white, and I am just going to ink it up with that same Cove blue ink. And I like that it is the darker, I think this is the darker of the two inks. And I've got a strip of the lighter and the darker down below. And with the area right above that hubcap photo, it is lighter. I'm going to use the darker on the 17 as well to make it pop. So I'm just using up these two blue inks to just make everything work together. I've said this before, but if you haven't seen the videos where I've mentioned it before, for me, when I go to a crop, I don't always want to take every color of paper, and actually I don't use a lot of cardstock to begin with. I use mostly black and white, sometimes a little craft, but taking your ink pads with you can really work in a situation like this, because I was going to bring my ink pads anyway. I can use them for mixed media, but I can also use them for stamping, and I can also use them to make these papers match the layout however I want. So very versatile and useful. So I'm just going to use my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive to go ahead and adhere all of this down. I want to make sure it's going to stick well. I didn't pop these up onto any foam or anything. They do have those little flames coming off the tops of the letters, and they're very delicate and super fine. So I didn't even think I should try to put foam. And they were cut on my silhouette, not with a metal die. So I didn't think I should even try doing any foam behind them, because I don't know, I think without the support behind those little flames in my album, they would have kind of got squashed. So I decided not to do that. Now I do want to bring in a little bit more black to my left-hand page, because my right-hand page has so much on it already. So what I did was I just cut a strip from the leftover grid piece that you see on the right-hand side, and that ensures that it's the same width as the grid that is on the right-hand side, but I am just going to adhere it right between those two blue strips on the left-hand page. Now I pulled out this heart piece of ephemera, and that is from Pink Fresh Studio, and I think this is also from Pink Fresh. It had other words attached to it, but I just cut the words that say happy, and I'm going to finish it off with some enamel dots. I'm not doing a whole lot more to it, because I don't think it really needs a whole lot more. Sometimes I feel like less is more, and so this is pretty much it. That's the finished layout. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave those down below. Again, my daughter will go ahead and put that journaling into that journaling card there, and that's going to do it. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys again tomorrow with another layout, hopefully the right layout. If you don't enjoyed this video, I'd love for you to give me a thumbs up, and if you're not already subscribed, I would love for you to subscribe as well. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys again tomorrow. Bye-bye.